Hey guys, Mike Toy Bonsai Boise. So thought it'd be time to do a fall 2021 update, early fall 2021 update. So follow me, let's take a look. All right, so here are the back trees. This is the lilac, which I'm actually noticing now it's put on some new growth. Didn't notice that till right now. Anyways, it's doing well. It's kind of looking a little bit droopy, like the leaves are folding in a little bit. But this lilac has always done that. It puts on new growth early in the year, and then it just sort of stops. That's why I'm surprised to see that new growth there. So here is the silver maple tree that I dug up a couple years ago, and I tried grafting for the first time right there. So I did this a year and a half ago, I think, and the branch hasn't died, but it hasn't really yeah, I guess I don't know what to make of it. It hasn't really taken off that much either. But anyways, this tree got aphids real bad about a month ago, and a lot of it died off. But a lot of it didn't, so it'll survive. Here's the other silver maple I've been working on for a few years. Kind of hard to get in here, it's been pretty dense. Yeah, I've got this in this gigantic oversized pot just because the point of this one is I'm just trying to thicken it up and let it grow real thick. So structurally speaking, it's got all kinds of flaws and stuff, but that's okay. I'm just letting it grow and more or less doing the hedge pruning method on this with a little bit of structural pruning, but for the most part, just let it grow, hedge prune it down to a shape, let it grow, hedge prune it down to shape. I do that 2 or 3 times a year. So it's living and doing well. Let's go look at the rest. Okay, so I'm around the other side now. It's going to look a little crowded in here at spots, so a few of these I might pull out and selectively just take a closer look, but I'll do my best for now. So in there is a honeysuckle. Oops. So this is the one that I did an air layer on about, I can't remember now, I think it was June that I did that. I believe it lived because here's all the new growth that it's put on since then. I decided to just wait until next year to check on it or to make the cut right there. Even though I do think it is rooted and I do think it's successful. In the past, when I've taken the cut and put it in a pot at this time of year, it doesn't survive the winter. So I'm just gonna wait, let it live, and then in the spring I'll make the cut then. There's a little blueberry bush that really has no structure to it at all. It's just kind of a blueberry bush that at some point I'm going to turn into a bonsai. Grass is growing in there, so you can't even really see it. This is a Zelkova cutting from my main Zelkova. As you can see, that's taken off quite a bit, and I think I already even trimmed this down once, and still it took off, so that's a good sign. Here is a silver maple, one of my favorite ones. I've had it for maybe 8 or 9 years, but it's got the little loop-de-loop there, as you can see. I trimmed it maybe once, possibly twice this year, but actually let's take a closer look at this. Here we go. Let's take a closer look here. So yeah, it's still relatively small. It doesn't really have any taper, so it's got a long way to go before it's anything to brag about, but I particularly like it. It started from seed in my backyard about, I think, 9 years ago, and I just used some twisty ties at the time just to do this little loop, and then from there. I liked it and sort of just went with it. So I did a video on this earlier this year. In fact, I want to say it was real early spring. I repotted it into this pot here. It's been doing well ever since. So that's a look at my loop-de-loop silver maple there. Let's look at a few more. Okay, so like I said, it is a bit crowded in here, so I'm going to do my best. Here's a little Japanese maple. I did a introductory video on this this spring. I bought this from a nursery here. It's taken off quite a bit, so it's doing well. This one I still have yet to figure out if this is a Terramond or a honey locust, but I am fairly certain it is a honey locust. If anyone out there knows better than me, please let me know in the comments. But I couldn't figure out really much of a difference between a honey locust and a Terramond. But it does have thorns, like a honey locust. So, if it looks like a honey locust, I imagine that feels like a honey locust. It's probably a honey locust. So let's roll with that. This is an oak tree pre-bonsai. I've had this in this pot for at least 1 year, maybe 2. But this year I basically just let it go. I don't think I've trimmed it at all. So it's got some good movement down there. I really am happy with that. I like that. I've been growing this from seed for about 3 years, give or take. It's like right there is where I had made a cut at some point. Boy, there we go. So I think I made a cut there. Must have been last year. Well, that's how that looks now. So I'm excited about the potential of this one. I may up pot it next year or repot it, or maybe just let it go another year. Haven't decided yet. Here's a green ash. Been growing this, or maybe I should say these, because it was 2 that I intertwined from seed, also about 9 or 10 years ago. It got aphids really bad more than once, and it has not really had a good, healthy growing season in probably 3 years. This year it bounced back better than it has in previous years, so that's good. So I'm hoping that next year it will bounce back even better. I've got to do some major work to it though. I don't know what I'm doing down here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to give that some major thought and figure out how to go about this and what the plan for the future is on it. Bear with me here as I grab this Virginia creeper. Let's take a closer look at this. All right, here's a little Virginia creeper. I repotted this, can't remember exactly when. I want to say it was maybe late winter or early spring in this pot. And it's got all these kind of weird, gnarly, exposed roots. Still a little wet because sprinklers came on a few hours ago, but I like it. I like all. It's not got that perfect refined look, which is not typically my style anyway. But the fun part about these Virginia creepers is that, man, they sure are colorful in the fall. You know, these colorful berries, colorful leaves. They're good and kind of a cascading effect there. Yeah, so that's a quick look there at the Virginia creeper. We'll just let it keep doing its thing for a few years. Let's take a look at this dwarf Alberta spruce here. So I did a video on this recently where I trimmed it up and kind of adjusted some wires. And you can see it's not doing great. It's put on some new growth since then. But it had some sunburn damage at the time. I moved it into the shade and it started to recover, but still in recovery mode as of now. So that's the dwarf Alberta spruce. A little bit scrawny looking at the moment, but not worried about it. It'll fill in. see, I'll move some of these out of the way. Alright, sorry about the jerky camera action there. It's another silver maple. Had this for maybe 7 years. A little bit less than some of the other silver maples, but just kind of going for a classic branch division there. 1 to 2, 2 to 4, etc. Kind of like this. It's almost like a half raft style at the base. Yeah, not much to say about that one. It's just kind of doing at the moment. Here is the oak leaf sumac. I've always liked this one. It's just got this real old, gnarly looking bark on it. It's really old looking, which I like. I like how colorful the leaves can get at times. What I don't like about it is how bad they smell when you cut them. An oak leaf sumac stinks so bad. Make a cut and it just, like, you immediately smell this really bitter, kind of skunkish smell to it. I've heard them called a skunk bush, actually, as a result of their smell. Here's my Siberian elm. I just trimmed this guy recently. And here we are at the end of September, and it's still putting out growth. I have noticed with these Siberian elms, here's the Siberian elm forest, by the way. I have noticed with these that they don't really have much fall color. They just kind of go from green to yellow and then fall off. So no oranges or reds or anything cool, just green to yellow and then gone. There's the Siberian elm forest. These things grow so prolifically. I probably trimmed this guy back, both of these actually, 4 times this year. If I had to guess, somewhere around there, 3 or 4. There's a western sand cherry. I'm gonna do some major work to this in the spring. I posted a video on this a couple of months ago, just talking about it. Going to do an air layer right there and repot it. Plastic pot's literally falling apart. Cotonister. Ooh. Didn't notice till now this branch here completely died back. That's a shame. Didn't notice that till just now. There's a catalpa. 1 of 2. Could probably use some wiring just to straighten out how those branches are going, but I haven't really messed with either of my catalpas, other than I do a trunk chop every now and then, as you can see there. And they subdivide pretty well and they bounce back. There's been a few times where they weren't getting enough water and they started withering and almost dying. And then I just start watering it again and it just bounces right back. So you're a champ. Here's another Virginia creeper that I barely looked at all year. It's just one of those ones I'm just kind of letting it grow. I'll hack it back when it gets too big. Problem with these Virginia creepers, as you can see, it comes way out here. They start growing into the ground and then popping up all over the place. Yeah, so that's one issue with them. Another Siberian elm. I did a video on this. I think it's called How to Clip and Grow Trim Your Bonsai Tree, something like that. I've been growing this from a cutting for about 3 or 4 years. It's fun. Not much to look at right now, but still fun. Alright, so here we'll take a closer look at these. So I've got Shantung maple, Cotonister, juniper, and silver maple. Let's look at each one individually real quick. Alright, so here's the silver maple. It's got some gross spider webs in there right now. See if I can clear these out. Hopefully the spider doesn't come out and eat me. Pretty gross. So kind of gross because I don't know where that spider is right now. I'm sure he's looking at me. A little jumpy, I guess. All right. Anyways, here it is. Got some dead leaves in there too. So it's doing well. I've always loved the shape and the flow of the trunk. And also what I love about this tree is it's got two fronts. It could go this way or that way. Although this way is starting to close up a little bit. So I'm thinking this will probably end up being the front. But yeah, I'll definitely have to repot this in spring next year. It's been in this pot for 3 years now at least. I'll say spring of 2018, so yeah, 3.5 years. So it's gonna need to be repotted. It's actually starting to rise out of the pot and we've got roots showing and everything. Yeah, that's a look at that. And here's the juniper. Just posted a video on this a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with how it's going. Today or tomorrow I'm gonna retry my luck at wiring this branch here to come across. Although I don't hate the movement of it now. I mean, it's not doing bad. I want it to come in just a little more, but I don't hate the way it is right now. So I got a little thicker wire, so I am gonna try to wire it up a little stronger to come around. We'll see how that goes. But otherwise, doing well. All right, there's the Shantung maple. There's one heavy son of a gun, let me tell you. Getting that there is no joke. Pretty big, it's grown out quite a bit. Just repotted it this year. These things do typically get some really cool fall color. Still early fall now, so might not have enough room to rotate it a ton, but yeah, after repotting it this year and some of the aphid problems I've had in the past couple of years, I just wanted it to really have one good growing season of just growing out. So I barely trimmed it at all. I think I did once or twice just because it was starting to block the path. So I kind of had to a little bit. I do typically get all these little new growth spurt shoots on the trunk. I usually rub those out. But otherwise I didn't really do any structural pruning or anything like that. I just wanted to grow, regain all its health, and it has. So this fall, when it drops all of its leaves, I'm going to take a look at the structure and come up with a more defined plan for it for the future. Figure out how big do I want this thing, what style do I want it to be, what shape do I want it to be, branches do I want to keep, which ones do I want to get rid of. This one I think I'm going to have to get rid of. It's just kind of going straight up right in front of everything. But it's got this deadwood back here, which I both like and don't like. It's kind of a cool looking feature. I might clean it up a little bit. I'm afraid water will get down in there and it'll start to rot, I fear, but it hasn't happened yet. So this Shantung maple I bought from a nursery 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. It's one of my first trees. It's been planted in the ground twice, so it's been through some hell. Planted, then dug up and moved, and then planted and dug up and moved, and so, but it's a trooper. It survived everything and it's doing great. But that is why it is so thick for only being 10 or 11 or 12 years old compared to some of those silver maples, which are half the size at best. Anyway, so that's a look at the Shantung maple. And from big to kind of small. Oops, looks like that broke off. Here's a look at the willow. I did a video on this, I think it was 1 year ago, about now, sometime last summer slash fall, where we potted it into this pot, and it's doing great. It's doing great. Trimmed it up a couple of times. Otherwise, more or less just kind of let it go. If I had to guess, I'll bet you there's roots coming out of the bottom. Sure is. It's a willow. These things grow like crazy. So I may want to look at repotting it in the spring. We'll see. We'll see. It's got some dieback here, as you can see, which is normal for willows. I try not to get too upset when that happens. Willows tend to die back a lot. Doesn't happen a ton, at least to me. I've heard others say that it happens to them a ton. I don't get a lot of it, but I get some. Otherwise, it's doing well. I'll probably lose this. I don't know why I let that go this long. Yeah, there it is. Let's look at the rest. Alright, so here are a couple of the Japanese maples. I did a video on this in spring of this year. I actually bought 3 of them from a nursery. One of them did not survive, the other 2 did. Very little trimming on these. Just when they start getting way out of whack, I'll trim it back a little bit. But now this late in the year, I really haven't, as you can see, because this one's kind of grown long. So I got decisions to make on these. You know, maybe I'll do a cascading thing on it. I don't know. But the good news is that they're growing very healthy. This one I did wire up, which I don't have great luck with. I'm trying to get better at it, so I'm just going to keep my eye on it. I'm going to watch the time of year that I do it. I usually do it in the spring and summer. I'm going to start doing it in the fall and the winter, where it's not growing, it's setting. So if I wire it up in the fall when it's still got some bendability, let it sit over the winter when it's not growing, the wire won't bite into the branches. Then when it starts to approach growing season, I'll take the wire off, and in theory, you'll have set in that position. This is all in theory. We'll see if it works. I can't remember even the names of these 2 Japanese maples right now, honestly. I'll look it up and I'll put it up there. There they are. Long way to go still on these. Lots of good potential. Alright, last one of these and then we'll continue the walkthrough. I don't know why that's doing that. Oh, yeah, I do. This and this. Two of these little things fell off, 2 stayed on. So this is the oak tree that I did a video on early spring 2021, maybe even late winter. I was a bit too early doing it, but it ended up being okay. Survived. So here it is. I've done very little trimming on it, maybe once or twice. I usually don't do much trimming if it's the same year that I repot it or do any major work to it, just because I want it to regain its health. When I trim them up too much and then I keep nipping at it all year, they tend to do poorly. But as a result of letting it grow wild, it's gone, as you can see, it's gone wild. It has no structure or anything to it. So I have to take a look here after all the leaves drop and make some decisions. I have a feeling this branch is going to end up having to go. Probably this one, maybe this one, or this one. Probably keep this one, get rid of that one. So keep these 2 and make some decisions as to which 2 up here to keep. No sense in worrying about it now. That's it. So as you can see, that one's doing well. Let's take a quick peek at the rest of them. We'll just walk through and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, where were we? Here's a Zelkova pre-bonsai. I've taken, looks like it's still full of water. Taken many cuttings from this, and many have survived. The problem is I also took many cuttings from my Siberian elm, and I can't tell which is which yet. So we got a lot of mixed up Zelkova and Siberian elm cuttings. Now more maple that is all kinds of scraggly right now. Just a pre-bonsai Elmore maple. So here's something interesting. This is an eastern redbud. Doesn't look like much right now. It's tiny. It's actually in its second or third year. They're kind of delicate little guys. But what's interesting about it is that I had to special order that. They're kind of hard to find. And since then, as I'm stepping on it, poor guy, here's one growing right in the ground. I didn't notice it until just like a minute ago. Have no idea where this came from or how it got there or how it survived this long without me noticing. But here is an eastern redbud just growing right at my feet. And I stepped on it just now, so I'm going to try not to do that anymore. So that's cool. Here's just a red maple, just a common red maple, but I like it. It's got some cool taper. The leaves do reduce well on these from what I'm noticing. They've got good fall color. You can see the branches starting to turn kind of red, which is interesting. Seems like it's sitting on something. Okay, moving on. Over here we've got, there's another Elmore maple. I have done a little cameo of this one in a video last year when I repotted another Elmore maple. This was the one that this was its companion, basically. And I'll show you that one in part 2 because it's on my balcony. But this is it. These Elmore maples are cool little trees. Very fun. Here's another one. I won't bother yanking it out because it's not anything different to look at, but got another one down there. Also this year, I experimented with some silver maples. Whoa. Nope. That one's stuck, so I'm just going to leave it alone because it seems to be stuck there. Oh no, I take it back. That is an Elmore maple. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, it's an Elmore maple, and I can see my wiring scars because, as we've established, I kind of suck at wiring. But what I was getting at is I've done a lot of silver maple experiments this year. If I can find some here. Here's one that I wired up that I managed not to leave the wires on too long. Just gave it some cool movement. I find that if you do this early enough, wired up, and just give it a little movement from there, you can take it off and it'll just kind of have character for the rest of its life from there. So that's what I did. Trying to fuse a few of them together. So far it's not going well, and that's my fault for not putting enough tape on there. So I'll have to take a second look at that. Here's one that I always thought was a red maple. Look at those wiring scars. But now I'm starting to think it's not a red maple, it's actually silver maple. Silver maple there. Silver maple there. I guess they're not that exciting, so we'll just keep moving on. Wisteria. Was kind of hoping for more growth in the trunk this year, but didn't get a lot of junk in its trunk. But these things are prolific growers. Alright, a couple more and then we'll wrap it up for real. Oops, I almost forgot. Loki. Loki the Black Willow. He gave me a scare this year because when I hooked up this automatic watering system, for whatever reason, Loki wasn't getting reached very well, and he started to die back a lot, as you can see. So I freaked out real quick, and I pulled myself together, gave it a thorough watering, moved it around so that it got watered better, which it is now, and it started bouncing back, but I'm a little worried that as a result it's going to die back even more this winter. We'll see. I don't think it'll die completely, but I think a lot of it will die back. So we'll see how that goes. Well, here's another silver maple I messed around with. I can feel that this is rooted into there, so we'll just leave it alone. Blueberry bush, pre-bonsai. This blueberry bush I do plan to bonsai soon. Got some blueberries here that have bloobed. Let's give it a test. taste blue. All right, let's look at the crabapple. All right, so the crabapple tree. It's really grown out. I hardly ever trim this, just because I do plan to air layer it, which I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this year, it sprouted some new growth down at the bottom after I trimmed it, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So in the spring, I'm going to air layer it right about here. And this bottom part will of course be its own bonsai, and then hopefully the air layer will take and we'll make a second tree out of the top. But yeah, it's got some cool root flare at the base. Pretty gnarly looking. I like it. Some potatoes. And here is the corkscrew willow. So most of the leaves have fallen off now, but I took a video just a few days ago, so I'll show you what that looks like right now. And last but not least, here is the dwarf Korean lilac. Put it in this pot about 3 years ago, give or take. It's done great ever since. I've done very little pruning to it, which it appreciates. But come spring of 2022, it is going to need to be repotted and trimmed up quite a bit. So that's it for part 1 here of the update. Thanks for watching. I'll post part 2 very soon.